Hello everyone and welcome back to another Addicted Fishing tutorial. My name's Jordan Knigge, and if you guys are new to this channel, this is Addicted Fishing. Today we're coming at you with a little educational piece, which is part of our repertoire. We do a lot of educational, inspiring, and entertaining content here on YouTube of all different kinds of fishing all over the world. So today is the educational piece on how to trout fish. What we're going to talk about is one of my favorite ways to fish, and it's actually a technique you're going to use more out of a boat. It's a trolling technique to catch trout, and that's with wedding rings. So we're going to go over the setup for the wedding rings, all the different kind of baits that you can put on these setups, and then we're going to actually show you how to fish them. So stay tuned, it's all coming at you right now. All right, so I'm going to start off first with the rod selection, which is probably the most important. You can get it down there with just about anything, but my favorite way to use this setup on a trolling setup, if you're fishing from a boat or a kayak or any kind of pontoon boat, stand-up paddleboard, anything that you can get a rod holder on, is to use some kind of bait casting reel. Why I like that, and what I'm going to use here on that is some sort of trolling setup, is because I have this line counter, which we'll go over here in a second. But this rod that I have is an 8-foot Okuma 4 to 10 pound kokanee black rod. This is a really nice rated rod because you can put more weight on if you're going to be fishing deep. If you're fishing these wedding ring setups, your odds are you're going to be fishing deep water, some kind of different flasher setup or Dodger setup or Ford Fender. Today we're going to go really simple and really easy because we don't need much in this lake for these fish. So what we're going to do is just a drop weight setup with a normal wedding ring set behind it at 3 or 4 feet. But you want something that's big enough to handle a downrigger, handle a 3 or a 4 ounce lead if you're fishing 50, 60 feet deep, and something that can get you down to the bottom and have enough backbone to land a fish if it's a big one especially, which this black rod is. I have an Okuma cold water reel on here. Don't necessarily have to be this big or this fancy. I like it just because of the line counter. I use this reel for a lot of different stuff. It's got some braided line on there, and I run that braid all the way through my guides down, and then I have about a 6 to an 8 foot bumper on there of 12-pound test, and that keeps those fish from seeing my braided line, and also allows me to have some tough lines so that I can get these snags out or bust my sinker off, which I'll show you here in a second, in case I do get snagged, that I don't lose my whole setup for that. So that's the rod setup, that's the line setup. I'm going to go ahead and show you the setup I'm going to use first here to troll these wedding rings, and this is probably the most basic setup you can do. There are a lot of options with flashers or Dodgers, like I said, or Ford Fenders, which are a long string setup, which we can find in some of our other tutorials here on YouTube, down in the Addicted Fishing page. But we're going to show you the most basic way possible here today to make it easy on you guys. So first and foremost, what I'm going to add onto my 12-pound test is a dropper weight of about 1 foot. So what I've done here, as you guys can see, it's very simple. I've taken a normal barrel swivel, attached one end to it of probably about 10 to 8 pound test. You want it to be light just in case this hangs up. I run about a 1 foot leader, and then I do just a normal overhand knot, nice and simple, that I can run through the weight, and that keeps this nice and easy in case I need to change weights or something's not working for me for given the kind of weight that I have on there. So I just do a little overhand knot. I run it through the eye of that lead, around the ball itself, and then pull it tight, and we're good to go. So this whole setup, this is about a 1 foot dropper, and that's just going to keep me off the bottom. Your setup will normally sit up high as it goes with the speed of your boat, and so you want to have a nice dropper so you can find bottom and not get snagged instantly if there is some sort of structure down there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run that main line that comes out of my rod tip through that eye of that swivel, and that's going to slide back and forth, and a lot of that again is just so that I can register those bites on my rod tip, and that fish doesn't feel the weight when it pulls against, and it actually feels the rod, and you can set that hook and make sure that fish doesn't get away. So now that I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie a normal little clasp on. This one I just had laying around. You can use, honestly, you can use another barrel swivel if you wanted to. Whatever's big enough so that that swivel doesn't slide over and go down to your hook and down into your wedding ring setup. So I'm going to put my clasp on here, just do a normal fisherman's knot really quick. And then I'm going to go ahead and get out my wedding ring. And what we mean by wedding ring, I'm sure a lot of people are a little confused. I'm sure you saw it in the title of this video, but a wedding ring is basically any kind of max lure here. Basically, it's just a setup, and this little guy right there is what defines the wedding ring. There's a lot of different colors, different blade colors, different sizes of blades, different sizes of beads and colors of beads, but having that little wedding ring in the middle there is what gives these bad boys their name. They're very effective for walleye, for trout, for lake trout, for kokanee, for anything that you can get in some sort of stagnant area. They work really, really well. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open my package here, taking this bad boy out. Grab my line, and it's very key here. This is the fun part. This is where a lot of people mess up and end up getting very mad. If you're gonna be fishing for sizable fish and you're gonna wanna have a little bit better leader line, I'd recommend taking just this whole setup off, sliding it down a different kind of leader line if you want a 10, 12, 15 pound test. But what these come with is about an 8-pound test, so nice and light so that those fish can't see it. What the key is here is to put that wedding ring end down so that it comes and it pays out nice and even there and doesn't get all tangled before you even get rigged up. And you can see how it's kind of in a knotted mess. I like to take my fingers, kind of hold semi-tightly and run that through my fingers ever so slightly. And it kind of helps stretch that line out a little bit and makes it so we don't have a big tangly mess. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to my clasp that I have here. And I'm just gonna tie that leader line that comes from this. You can shorten this leader if you want a little bit. It's about 4 feet long right now, but I'm just gonna go ahead and keep it the way it is because I think it'll work just fine. Again, back to the other side of that clasp, and I'm just gonna do a normal fisherman's knot here. Once again, just a normal clinch knot. There we go. So one important thing that I like to do most of all, because the thing that we're going to talk about next after I go over this little piece is how many different kinds of baits that you can put on here. You can see the hook that comes with these things, you're not putting much bait on it of any sort, maybe a piece of corn or something, but really it's not going to be very effective. So what I like to do, I like to slide that bad boy up, slide my wedding ring up, cut that hook right off, and you can either tie a double hook like a trailer hook setup, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep it easy. I'm going to dig into my trusty bag and grab my Mustad trout hooks here. And why I'm gonna use these is because I'm gonna use one of these bait hooks so that I actually have, and the size 2 bait hook is what I'm gonna use on this setup, so that I have something that holds onto that bait, whether it be my power bait or worm or so on and so forth. A lot of people, if they're fishing for fishing for big trout, big lake trout, they'll go with that heavier leader and they'll go with bigger hooks and they'll tie a trailer hook on, but we're just gonna go with a single hook today to keep it simple for you guys. We'll tie that on there really quick. It's a normal fisherman's knot, once again, just a normal clinch. Pull it tight. And by doing that, we've doubled our hook size and made our presentation that much more effective in actually landing these fish. Because the worst thing you want to do is have takedowns all day in the back of the boat and never ever put a fish to the boat. So there's our setup. A little bit bigger hook, allows you to have a little bit more bait on there, and again, allows you to stand a little better chance fighting a bigger fish. So really the great part about fishing these wedding ring setups is the versatility of bait that you can put on. Because you have these beads set up like this, which separates your hook from your flashy spinner presentation, you can put any kind of bait on that you want and it won't affect your presentation. So what I have behind me here is a few different options of the different kinds of bait that you can use to get at these fish. A lot of them are classics that we all know. A lot of them might be something you guys have never heard before, but each one of them goes well on the hook throughout the day. And the fun part is you can keep changing and keep trying different tactics on each pass to see if there's something different that those fish really want. So what I have here is I have a few different things. I have these power eggs. I have the addicted power eggs, which are kind of a steelhead egg, a lot of different colors, some of our own custom designs. You can add any kind of scent you want to those rubber eggs. Next to it here I have some power eggs. These are garlic scented. Another thing that you can just put right on the end of the hook, it gives it some scent, gives it a little different color and a little different profile. One of the more classic things to put on the hook is going to be your worm, of course. The worm, that's where you would tie in the worm harness with an extra trailer hook or use half the worm so that you're not getting short struck. But good old-fashioned night crawlers on the end of the wedding ring is probably the main go-to. If I'm going to recommend anybody fish one thing on the end of a wedding ring, it's going to be some kind of night crawler or artificial worm. Next to it is I have some mini marshmallow garlics. These things are really great, again, because they offer a different color, a lot different profile, and again, a big range of scent, whether it be normal marshmallow scent, garlic, shrimp, anise, anything that's going to allow those fish to key in on something a little bit different. Next to that, I have just your good old-fashioned power bait. Clump that right on the hook and it trolls well behind it. Something you're going to want to make sure you get packed good and tight around that hook so that it doesn't fall off while you're trolling, because you're not going to be casting this technique. Obviously, you're just going to be trolling. So this is probably the least effective for staying on the hook. Everything else here stays on the hook really well. And then of course, last but not least, if you guys have seen any other tutorials, the Velveeta cheese, you never want to leave at home either. Along the same lines as that, other things that work Could be something like this, some salad shrimp that you can get at the store, any kind of prawn, any kind of coon shrimp, anything that adds some different scent to that spinner, so that a flashy attractant that adds that scent and gives it that natural presentation and gets those fish to bite every time. So now that I got my motor going, I got a good troll going, I can see I have a proper speed to where it's making that blade spin, but not too fast, it's not pulling it back too much. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it down. Right where I'm at here, it's about 15 feet. So I'm gonna want this, you can fish them suspended, you can fish them all through different water columns of the lake, but I'm gonna go down right towards bottom here because it's winter time. These fish are gonna be deep and I'm gonna find them closer down to the bottom. So I'm gonna let my line counter out to about 14 feet here, right about there. And just like that, it's that simple, we're fishing. I'm gonna stick that in the rod holder and I'm gonna get my other rod baited up here with some salad shrimp, because these trout love these shrimps. And that's all these are, just your normal dinner plate salad shrimp. I'm gonna add right onto the hook here with this wedding ring. And for these, I'm gonna hook them a little bit further up into the top of the meat there, so that I can make sure that that thing's not gonna come flipping off as it starts doing little cartwheels down in the water column. There we go, just like so, right on the end of that hook. Again, same 2-ounce lead. And this is just a little bit different setup. This one's just a silver blade with different colored green beads on there. So same thing, different color, a little bit different presentation, different smell. So I'm gonna go down. This one I'm gonna put about 16, 17 feet, just so I'm hitting a little bit different water column. We'll go down to 20 just for kicks and gigs. And just like that, everybody, we're fishing. So the most important part of this is, again, not to go too fast. You want your line angles anywhere from about 45 degrees to the surface, right in that little realm. You don't want to get it flat lined out behind you so that your stuff's sitting right up on the surface, because that's going to make it hard for those fish to identify that. They're going to be looking up. If it's right under the surface, they're not going to see it as well as if it's trolling right by them nice and slow. So I have a nice slow idle. If you're using an electric trolling motor, set it on 1 to 2 to 3, as long as you can get those 45-degree rod angle or line angles that are coming off the bow here. Have it in your rod holder, or you can hold on to it, but make sure you have that proper speed, and that's gonna help you be a lot more effective in staying down in front of those fish, especially if you have any sort of depth to your lake. If you have a very shallow lake, you can go with that 1-ounce lead, keep it higher in the water column, and keep it simple for you. All right, everybody, well, we hope that if you guys haven't heard of wedding rings or ever heard of fishing this style before, that this helped you out a little bit. It's a great technique to use from any sort of flotation device, whether you have a float tube, kayak, raft, any kind of canoe, or a boat like I have here. Keep these things in your box. They work very well for any kind of bait presentation. And again, it's one of those methods that you can fish forever and try every single different bait that you have that day and effectively fish down to those trout and go out and have some fun and get some stuff for the dinner table. So thank you so much for tuning in today, you guys. If you liked what you saw today, be sure to give us a little thumbs up down here, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that bell notification so that you can see more of these tutorials that we have coming out every single day here on YouTube. So stay tuned, you guys stay fishy, and we'll see you out there.